Okay, we're back in the car. We have the Eclipse, and we have gotten it fully tuned up to where I want it to be. It is ready to go, waiting for the engine swap. But it's been tuned for the motor it has in it. When we can finally do the engine swap, it'll literally be a drag and drop, and then adjust. Yes, it will be a drag and drop and adjust RPM. Not adjust RPM, that's the whole point of the drag and drop, so I don't have to worry about having bad RPM, or less than 8,000, I should say. So it'll be a drag and drop, and then adjust final drive to fit the gearing overall speed for the extra rough 100 horsepower increase we're getting. So I'll show you the stats we're running right now. It's exactly what you would expect from a Mitsubishi Eclipse factory, at least factory body. It is modified, very much so. 200 horsepower, it came with 174. We're revving out to 7100, 7119, which is perfect because it lets us at least come 1,000 short. Before we were shifting at 6,000 because we were only revving to 500. And I like having a little wiggle, even if it's just 100 RPM wiggle. But I prefer having a set 1,000 marker to shift at. So I wasn't really comfortable shifting at 64 or 63, because I can't decipher on the dash 64 from 65, because it's a bit tight and there's no specific line dividing, right? So 7,000 though, I can shift at 7,000. I can shift at that line. So long as I have 100 RPM more, I'm not going to hit my limiter. I'll always shift before it. Sometimes I can just get too busy with talking about things and sit there and hit limiter a couple times just because I'm not paying attention. But when I'm actually paying attention, it's fine. It's not a problem. I just like having a set 1,000 marker that I shift at with my engines. So when we were only running 6,500 RPM, the factory ECU, 6,500 RPM, we were shifting at 6. Now we're on the racing. We've extended it out all the way, and that's what boosted our horsepower from, as you can see, 174 to 201. So we're just barely reaching that 200 horsepower flat marker, just barely above it by 1. I'm not going to show my ratios, but we're running a 4.93 final drive on elite gears. We've added the 90-liter fuel tank, so we're heavier than factory. From factory, we would be 1480 kgs. We're 1527. If funny, I could set us back to 1480 kgs literally right now if I wanted to, just with street weight reduction. But I haven't done. I could say that I've done weight reduction, and you wouldn't know. But I'm keeping this pretty legit to what it should be, so I'm not doing any downforce, because obviously the car hasn't gotten any extra exterior parts in which would add downforce from the factory body. So we have done a full suspension tune. We left the brakes and sway bar stock. I always leave the brakes stock. Why, you might be asking? I'm going to tell you why. If you are needing more stopping power than the factory brakes offer, you are probably going faster than that chassis should be going. And that's just the reality of the situation. When a car is made from factory, it's made to stop faster than it can accelerate. Now, if you are ending up in situations where you're braking and your brakes aren't enough, you were going too fast for your chassis to handle in order for you to brake to withstand, to stop before hitting or going off whatever line or hitting whatever wall you were going to hit or whatever object. Either way, it shows you were braking too late or going too fast. One of the two. Because if you just let off a little earlier and braked a little earlier, well, you would have reduced your braking distance because you wouldn't have pushed it out as far. So that's the reality of braking situation. If you are needing more braking power, it's because you're simply not braking soon enough. There's no real need for all the additional braking power when you get a rhythm, especially when you're in a 200 horsepower car. But even in cars like my 190Z, which is 1100 and some kgs, 540 horsepower, I believe, VQ twin turbo, VQ35, rounds to 7,000, does 307 kilometers an hour uphill in fourth gear, and it's a 5-speed. So, you know, you look at things like that, and it's like, it's I have factory brakes on it, and it's on 3 somethings. I'm pretty sure that the fronts are 325s and the rears are 345s. Maybe I could have that mistaken, but it's on wide tires, both front and rear. It's got good traction. It's wide body. It's got a massive spoiler, and it's full blown, and has really good downforce and holds the road nicely. And that car doesn't have any weight reduction. I could drop that car below 900 kilograms if I were to do weight reduction on my 190Z. And that's insane considering it's over 500 horsepower with a V6. So the weight distribution of the car is even better balanced because the 190 front end as it is a bit elongated. But a V6 you can push further back towards the firewall, which makes my 190Z more of a front to mid engine type balancing, kind of like the Corvettes. And that's an extreme advantage in handling. So when you set up a car right, and depending on what modifications and changes you make to it and how you set it up and tune it, you can make any setup practical for any kind of performance racing that involves corners, I would say. I think I showed the tires. We're on 265s all round. Even this Eclipse, though it's only 200 horsepower, can move pretty well on the highways. Finally got our gearing in, so our shifts are smooth all the way through, first to fifth, the entire way. It's awesome. I love it. Very happy with it. Oh yes, this is perfect. I'm still trying to figure out this whole mess of highway interjections and overlaps, and yeah, I'm still trying to figure it all out, to be honest, but I'm getting it a bit. I have some of it down. I'm trying to figure out how to get onto this road from entering, going the opposite direction on the road above it. You'll see. Because we're actually going to get spit back out onto this road, except onto the road above it. And I'm trying to figure out how to get back onto this underpass from entering that roundabout loopy circle thing. And it's not the easiest. It's very difficult to understand, and I'm still trying to figure it all out. But even something like this can be a pretty nice highway car. Because here's the thing, whoever said you had to be the best of the best, like, it doesn't have to be the best of the best to be a good vehicle. Whoever told you that is on one. That's not the case at all. What makes a good vehicle is how it's set up. If it's set up nicely, it's set up nicely, no matter what it's set up for. If it's set up nicely for whatever it's set up for, then it's simply set up nicely. That's a nice car. You can't really argue against that, right? And to that, every car is a nice car in its own right. I'm not saying that means you can't dislike something. I'm saying that everything has its own right to exist, at least per se. Because everybody's entitled to their own opinion. If they want to like something that's not the same thing as you, that's their opinion. You don't have to let that change your opinion, you know? But you shouldn't force your opinion to be the superior one as well. I'm not an electric person. I really don't like electric. I don't think it was something that should have been implemented in vehicles. But you know what? If you're an electric person and electric's your vibe, good for you, you know? That's your taste. I'm all for you doing your own vibe and being true to yourself, you know? If that's your taste, then that's your taste, and that's cool. I respect that. Just myself, it's not my taste, and I don't like it. That's just my opinion, but I will respect your opinion if you do like it. You're more than welcome to have that. I don't know why everybody gets so in argument of one having to be better than another, because the reality is they're all better in their own rights. They have their own traits, which makes them nice in their own ways. Some people just have an opinion to like the traits it offers more than other vehicles, and that's just a simple law that applies to all vehicles. We sideswiped that guy really bad, but to be fair, they turned into us. To be fair, we were speeding though at the same time. So like, this is a really nice car in its own right. If I were to say this is a really nice drift car, that would be like completely wrong, right? But if I simply say this is a really nice Mitsubishi Eclipse, it is. It's just a simple, plain Eclipse. see, we are on the back on top of that exact same road, except we come in from this side, and now I have to figure out, because if I go left, it puts me all the way down to the bottom, without exception. If I go right up here, can I go left and then right? Or is this just going to send me right onto the highway that goes into the tunnels? I don't have an option to split right, do I? No, I don't get an option to split back to the right. So, but if I go right on that just spits me back out onto this highway. See, I thought that I was gonna get this one split in the middle that would maybe take me back down. No, how do I get back to it being under this road? It's such a messy conjunction. Can you? How? What? I know if you come in from this way, you can get onto... If you come in from the opposite direction that we're currently facing, and you go right, you can loop around in 270 onto there. There's no way to get to it coming in from any other side, is there? Ooh, I don't think there is. No, there literally isn't. So that is the only way on. We have to come from this side and come this way. So we have to run a counterclockwise circuit. Okay, so then how do I spit out of this? Ooh, if I... Yes, I've got it figured out. Okay, don't worry, I've got it figured out. We're gonna make a U-turn at the roundabout up ahead. Don't turn into me. Okay, I've got the counterclockwise circuit laid out. I think it's gonna be really good. I think this is gonna be like the best highway circuit I've ever come up with so far. I like just running a genuine highway circuit that you can just go until you run out of gas and then just stop and fill up and keep going. I thought we were gonna close distance faster. Just gotta remember that right comes up soon. I shouldn't be running super insane when I haven't even gotten a test lap into my new circuit that I just mapped out in my brain. Well, yeah, literally, I'm not able to highlight it on the internet. I'm able to set a waypoint, but that's just placed point to point. It's not gonna, I can't outrun a circuit. That would be really neat if we could do that. Place checkpoints on the minimap, point destination with checkpoints, and then you can outline a circuit on the minimap. I personally would just like to get rid of the minimap entirely. Like, it would be nice to just not have it there. Same with the speedometer on the top right. There's one right there on my dashboard. I'd have to go into drone mode to figure out what lines are reading what numbers. But is that a problem? No. I can do that in literally 30 seconds or less. So it would be nice if we could remove our minimap and HUD. Unfortunately, we can't. It is what it is. The only nice thing about the HUD is being able to read my mileage and being able to read the digital speedometer. It can be useful for dialing gearing too, but it would be nice to have the ability to turn it on and turn it off. That way you can turn your car, then you can drive your car, look at your dash, figure out where your lines are reading what numbers, and then you know how fast you're going. Like, do you think I can read what numbers are on the RPM gauge right now? No, I can't. Not at all. But I know that's 7,000. No, 6,000, my bad. So, because the red line is there. That's red line. There. We don't have it unlocked. This engine can't go that far. We would be money dripping to do that. I know that 6,000, which is where we normally were shifting, right here. Because, well, our red line is 8,000. I went into drone mode to check the red line on this car when I bought it. And I know that red line is 8,000, and I can see where it goes red. So I know that each line before that is 1,000 RPMs before my red line. Therefore, this is 4,000 right here. My exact middle, if I can get to it, right here is 5,000. 6, 7. And once you know your lines, you know your lines. In my case, I have it set up so that I'm shifting at the last white line before the red line, which is 7. It's not bad if you can get the motor to be 1,000 RPM or under, because being under by 1,000 RPM isn't too bad. Yes, it would be nice to have the rest of 7 out and be able to run all the way to 8 and actually run out to the red line, but 7 is the next closest 1,000 to the red line, so it is still easy to mark where your red line is, because I just look at the red line and I'm one before it, right? It's just one notch before red line, and I mark that one notch as my red line in my brain. It's the last number available before they turn red. And that's how I categorize it when my engine doesn't rev all the way out to the dashboard red line. Sometimes it's really bad. Sometimes it's really bad and you have a 9,000 RPM red line and an engine that only revs to 6,500 RPMs, and even with modifications only revs to like 7,000 flat. This one you could push to probably high 7s, probably 7,800 RPMs, but this engine still wouldn't hit 8,000. But it could probably hit around 7,800 RPMs at fully maxed. I would be guessing. I googled whether or not it could hit 8,000, and I was told no. This is the race ECU fully maxed out. There's only Elite and Ultimate after that, so it can only go 2 stages further, which I don't know to what extent those extra 2 stages would add, but we're at 71 as it is. Trying to get an extra 800, that'd be 400 RPM per stage. There's only Sport and Racing. Sport is the only stage before the one we have, and we were only able to push from 65 to 71. That's only 600 RPM. So we'd be expecting an extra 100 RPM per stage. Yeah. I thought we were going to slow down a little bit faster than that. But that was my fault. But also, you're not supposed to do this when you're touching side by side. Are we going to speed up down there? Okay. Just go contact if you can't see me. Not supposed to be side by side, but no. Dickhead thing to do. No, we didn't hit the pole, but we got close. We can't hit the pole. We're not going to. Let me... Oh, is this all specifically one way? Okay, my bad. I finally stopped and looked at what side my fuel tank is on. It's on our passenger side. It's so nice having a 90-liter fuel tank. Okay. This is a really good start and stop station for this circuit, not gonna lie. It's nice, it's right on the edge of town, it's easy to get to from town. There's a house that is close by you can teleport to and do tuning, performance tuning at. And then we have a styling shop, I'm pretty sure not far off. Yep, right here. Right here. Oh my gosh, just literally like 3 blocks away. We have a styling shop, so... And then you can spawn at this house and drive just literally like 2 blocks, 3 blocks down the road. And this is a perfect start-stop station. And just run this highway out to this left. And then up the rest of that. All the way around through the tunnel. To which you come out here. And then through there. To which you come out here. And then... No, I didn't click that. I was just scrolling the map. I promise. And then you take the far right option when you get to these. And you go all the way around 270. All the way down onto this road. Which you ride the whole underneath of. Until you get spit back out here. Which is your starting and ending point. And gas station. And there's gas stations along the way. Such as this one, or this one, Well, wait, no, you're on the highway for that one, so you can't actually get that one. My bad. My bad. This one is on the same level. It's just a little off to the side. Then there's this one. And of course, the one at the roundabout. That's under off to the side. So yeah, those are the gas stations you would end up hitting. It's a nice little circuit. That's how you kill your engine, for anybody who doesn't know. Just upshift. It's automated clutch input, so if you just upshift at a stop, your RPM will drop a little bit per each time you shift. You get your timing right so that it's just continuously dropping RPM. Eventually it will hit 0, and then the engine's off. It's only idling because it's at idle. It needs throttle. Idling is feeding throttle. But if you get that RPM to 0, it doesn't matter if you're feeding throttle. You need ignition at that point. There's your ignition. Well, it's automated clutch input, automated ignition, throttle. When you apply the accelerator, it assumes sorry. It assumes the application of ignition upon throttle if the engine is off. If it's not off, it simply applies throttle. Like that. So you can be subtle about it, or you can be aggressive with it. Often it's hard to get the timing of the light throttle. Often the heavy throttle is a simple touch. Just a simple, that's all it takes. Just natural. Nice and simple ignition as you most likely would if you were to actually be starting your car in real life. You would most likely simply turn the ignition, let it turn on, and idle. You probably wouldn't be feeding throttle. I mean, with some of the older carbureted cars, you might be feeding a little bit of throttle on ignition, depending on the conditions of your vehicle. Some vehicles might need a little bit of throttle fed for the engine to start, but most of the time the ignition itself does just fine. That was a little aggressive. I keep the headlights on, keeps my dash lit. Normally I don't, but if the dash is... No, I didn't know. If the dash is a bit darker like this, then at certain hours of the day it can become quite difficult to read the dash, and sometimes certain angles the numbers blend in with, not the numbers, but the lines end up blending in, and I just prefer being able to see everything really well. can. It's crazy. Leave rain next to the camera. Rain it. That's okay. I have a solution. Maybe. Hang on. Let me back check my solution before. Wait. Yeah, let me back check my solution. My solution is over here. My solution is okay. Okay. We'll solve it. I have a solution. I almost missed the opportunity to use my solution. Don't worry, we're gonna get back onto those dishes. It'll be fine. I got this. I'm not gonna miss the camera time. I'm good. And I promise my solution is good. It might be a little confusing at first, but it's fine. It's fine. Another way. Trust. Honestly, 200 horsepower is really nice with this setup. I am like very excited for the engine swap, and because the engine swap is the last part to this build. It's only going to boost us up to around 300 horsepower, so I'm hoping that it's going to put us in class 2 and keep us in class 2 like perfectly, because the engine swap is the last piece to this build coming to life fully. Like, I won't be doing any changes to the body or changes to the suspension or tires. The only thing it needs is the engine swap and for me to drive in the final drive so that the gearing is aligned properly with the power boost. Because we'll be getting an extra 100 horsepower and 1000 RPMs, which is a good boost. And we're going from a NA naturally aspirated to a turbocharged motor. Still going to be an inline 4. Don't worry about it, you'll see it when it comes to life. We still need to get the prep to make that happen, so that's what we are now saving for. We are saving for the prep work to make that happen, because we have to go and we have to get to have because I don't have the engine yet. But yes, we are C2 engine swap part of the build. It is fully C1 oriented and complete as a C1 turn. It's not going to get any more extras than it already has. No! Damn it! This is not looking good. I somehow took the wrong turn again. I thought... Arg. Okay, don't worry, this is fine. Don't worry about it. Nothing happened. We totally just completed the lap, and we just went through it. No, totally. Don't worry about it. I'm terrible at analyzing the places. Why would you pull in front of me? I'm going 200 kilometers an hour, and you think that's a smart idea? See, this guy knows that he's better off to get out of my way. Same with that guy, he couldn't even see me. We took that corner way hot. That was a bit sketch. The rear end started to slip out a little. Held together nicely though. It very much so held up. Held it down, I'm proud of it. For being 100 horsepower short of where I want it, and 1,000 RPM short of where I want it, it's doing really well. It's for its C1 tune, I'm impressed. I thought it was going to be much more rough. I didn't think it was going to handle this smooth, and the power, I did kind of expect it to be reaching roughly the speeds it's reaching, but the handling is very much smoother and more agile than I was expecting. No. Asshole. Oh my. It's getting terrifying with some of these close calls. That truck was closer than that wall was. So was that car. At the last moment he put on his signal, it's like, I better not go right, and he was gonna go right at the exact same moment I was gonna try and cut right to go around him, so I didn't want to risk shooting that gap between him and the barrels. And then he put his signal on to start going right. It's like, oh shit, I better try. And we were able to fit. that one right. Getting tight. What do you say we do a choke on? We're gonna go the long way down. This scrimpted highway really shows how well a car can get speed on downhill stuff. Like if you want to check how fast you can get a lower powered car to go, this downslope is really good for building up speed. And so speed mode above. That's a really good straight for testing top end. That's convenient. Pays for our gas. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so 16 divided by 2. 8, right? $800 on him. Yeah. So we just paid $800 for fuel. With flare level 31. $800 to fill up from where we were with a 90-liter tank. $950. Paid off our gas bill and gave us $150 pocket. Isn't that awesome? That's a low. I'm normally I get 1,000 or higher. Since we have time, we'll show you. Do I know its exact location? Nope, but we're gonna figure it out. There's going to be at least one up in this area because I haven't collected from here in a little bit. So we'll get at least one cash box from down here, most definitely. It would be very, very odd if we hadn't had one spawn in here yet. Either down here or by my house. I figured we'd have had one spawn up here by now. I guess not. Well, I need one. In other case, you might find one up Not bad. We were definitely overspeeding for that corner. I'm impressed that it was able to turn that curve and hold its own without just getting completely sent off its line by understeer or oversteer. The tire traction there. None here either? Wow. Pretty tiring now, isn't it? Maybe the card maybe? said earlier today, and there wasn't too many. knife and dick, come on. After all that time, and it's still just gonna be like, nope, you don't get cash boxes up to 1,000. What are you talking about? You can't try to make me look bad. I really enjoy this Eclipse. We're gonna be driving it for a good while. By the way, I should mention, ever since we've gotten this Eclipse has paid itself off, and all of the work that's been done to it. Which is pretty amazing, that I've just used this for collecting cash boxes that much, that it's already paid itself off, and paid for everything that's put into it. It's awesome. Numbers maybe on the lower side. 1,855. There we go. Its numbers may be on the lower side, but it's still a really, really good car when you set it up properly. Couldn't get it to bite in. Why? I caught that it was going too wide, and I sharpened it immediately. That was a close call. That was a good save. That was good. That was a really good one. That was fun. Yes, we're gonna legit traffic RP this roundabout. At least until the road opens up a bit more. Now we need to chill a bit. You know our limitations of traffic. Beautiful. Technically, I should kill my headlights for my refuel, but it's not a problem that I don't. Key's still in ignition. Doesn't. So long as the car is powered, the lights can be on. It's not like we popped the hood and pulled the battery or anything. Like, let's do a run back on going the other way. Same road, just going the other direction. It's a fun car. I do want to play around up in here a little bit, and because like you can counterclockwise or clockwise do the circuit of this and just loop it back into a circuit and just keep running this. And that's super tight stuff. That's fun. And you can run that either direction. But I want to... I classify the run we just did as a coast to coast because we ran from this coast of the map all the way to up here. We ran basically the entire left side of the map. This whole, not really coastline, but coastline, you know? And we ran it top to bottom, so now we're running it bottom to top. New set of tires? No. After this run, we'll replace the tires. Actually, no, I did want to do it there. I'm sorry that I can't. That's why it felt like it hit me like a brick, because it is. I can't see what's to the left and right, and my bad. I did want to go up there, so I wanted to take the other road to Alrighty. 22% of what we're starting with. Are you okay with me? I'm not connected to a microphone that's level any. Sometimes I get a bit too close and other times I don't. What? Why? Like, we weren't even going that fast. We weren't going that fast. We pumped the brakes. Like, that seemed a bit ridiculous. I know that plays pretty well. That one I don't know. Didn't have the braking power. I didn't start braking soon enough to. I didn't start braking soon enough to be able to make that corner. My tires wouldn't have held up again, but it did. Going too fast. Twisty section back there that's super, like, misshaped and tight. I don't like the rhythm of it. Okay, let's teleport to... This is going to be the easiest. Definitely felt the frame rate reduce as I went to go around them. And 10% good. Yeah, you can see the cars are like not moving smooth. Even the blue arrow is slower than it normally is. It feels like the physics are like soft. The frame rate like this when it's lightly. I think it's my phone still need to get a little warm. It's not fully smooth. You can see the roughness in this downward compared to when we first started recording when the game pressure firing up. You can see the roughness in the road, not the speed. It does not feel like we're traveling the speed we're traveling. That's signs of lag. Frame rate reaction. I don't know why I think it's like that, but it does. Perks 1 suggestion is to tab out and tab back in. And it tends to help. I hadn't been spamming the change camera button the entire time because it's literally every time you click it, it does nothing unless you hit the tiny little circle inside the camera. Yeah, you have to literally hit the specific exact pinpoint location of the camera button for it to activate. It's so tiny that it's such a pain just to change cameras. Now we're feeling okay. I wish I could remove that nitrous button. Before we wrap up. My gold mine property. So it always gives me at least one. Usually I get 2 or 3. But you can get more depending on how often you come down here. And luck. Look at the draw of the cash boxes spawning there. Sorry, that's my bad. That was me looking over my secondaries. That was distracted driving. Kind of just cut off. We'll get a good amount of it in. Okay. I tried to tell it to downshift sooner, and it just wouldn't. By the time I did get it to downshift, we were already way past the breaking point. One thing I hate about this, how you can press a button and it won't press. Sometimes it won't even get anywhere near to pressing. It's like, what the fuck? Bigger, then they become an eyesore. Those two that went. So the first handbrake was nice. The second one was not. I assumed it was a hairpin because I didn't lift them out. Okay. No, I'm outside of that. Never touching the That's the problem. That part wasn't bad at all. That part actually went really well. Which makes me curious. techs on our passenger side anyways. Oh, that's freaking... Alright, this is what we're going to be wrapping up. It was a bit rough for a bit there, but we were good overall. Things weren't that bad in the end. So now we're just chilling at the gas station. I don't know what's, I see what that is. It's a like gutter drainage thing, but the texture for it is just terrible. Alrighty. I hope y'all enjoyed the bit of driving we've done. We will be sticking in the Eclipse for the next little while as we get it prepared for its Class 2 arrangements. This is its Class 1 arrangements. Again, Class 2 arrangements is just simply going to be a drag and drop of a new engine install, and then we will adjust the final drive in the transmission to have the gears fit that new engine that we install. So hopefully we can get to that soon. That engine swap probably won't be for a while, but we will be driving the Eclipse to get very well acquainted with it. Like, I'm okay with putting over 1,000 kilometers on the car just to get used to it before we even have that engine swap dropped in. Because it's a really, really good car, and I'm going to end up driving it quite a bit. It's basically becoming our new daily, and we're just dailying it on the factory motor it came with. That we only put 30 grand into the factory motor, into that ECU. That ECU was 30,000, and then we did the full extension on it, which I don't know what cost, probably 5K. And then the gearing was like 40K altogether. When I count, I probably spent 10,000 on the tuning, paid 31 for the gearing unlock. This car's got good money into it. The tires alone are 10K. Between the gearing and engine, there's 70K, so that's 80K. And then the suspension was 20K for the springs and dampers, so that's already 100,000. And then the arms were at least 30,000. And then the car itself was 49.5, so you might as well just round to 50. So that's another $180,000 deep into this thing. And I'm not just money deep into it, it's got tuning deep, so it's got knowledge behind it. And it takes work to get things dialed in correctly, and it's dialed in. If you were to take your car to a shop and just say, yeah, I have all the pieces here, put it together, don't worry about tuning anything electronically, it'd probably drive like shit, especially a modern vehicle. A fully mechanical vehicle, well, mechanical is mechanical, the pieces are what make it function. But with anything electrical that has ECU, you probably need ECU adjustments that probably has to do with computer tuning, to do with the ECU. Either way, the gearing has been aligned properly to be fully in sync and close ratio, as close as I can get actually, with the factory transmission. I cannot keep these gears in sync and get them any closer together than they already are. So that the transmission is tuned literally on point perfectly. This car has the suspension dialed in. It's on factory sway bars, factory brakes. The ride height, stiffness, and damps are all dialed in to exactly how I want it to be. It's on 265s all around. It came on 225s, I believe, 215s, something like that. It's got the plus 10 treads, so like its handling has been refined. Its gearing has been refined. It's revving out to 7,000, which is, again, not all the way out to its red line, but it's only 1,000 short of red line, which is still acceptable. It's making 200 horsepower flat, which is actually a really nice number for what it is. Yeah, the car itself is just phenomenal, even the way it is with the factory motor running 200 horsepower, which is still a kick up on power from what it was before. It was only 174. Now it's able to pass 210. I enjoy driving the car just the way it is. It's very much real. It feels more legit than driving something that's way out there, like a supercar or a heavily modified vehicle. It feels much more legit to drive this than probably any other of my cars. It's probably the closest to realism of what it is. 200 horsepower front wheel drive, around 1,530 kilograms. 265s. 265s are what you would see on a production car. I don't know if that's accurate to what Mitsubishi released this car with, but it's what I fit onto it. I had to do some adjustment to get the fitment dialed in perfectly with them, which is another thing. The suspension and offset, the wheel alignment and fitment and all that is all dialed in properly. So there's a lot behind this car that make it much more than just a stock Eclipse. And because of that, it feels phenomenal in comparison to driving just a stock Eclipse. And I think it's great that we've recorded how it was to how it is, because you can look back and you can see how it drove before compared to how it drives now. And it's almost like a whole new car. And it's still within the same generalized bracket of performance level, but it's just been refined. And that's really all you could ask for a C1 car. This could beat, just make sure that I have the number. If I have the numbers, then no, I couldn't beat, because that's 149 and I'm 131. If they would let me into the race, I could beat their ass. But I have to beat 140. I could beat this club, the first club. But I'm only 18 class rating away from being able to enter the elite race for the other class 1 club, in which if I were to simply go do something like exhaust, I could do a simple exhaust, literally exhaust and exhaust manifold, and do those up, and it would hit the C1 149 rating I need, or I would be able to get it to hit that rating. Most definitely I would be able to get it to hit that rating. if I were to put on the correct exhaust parts, yeah. And then I'd be kicking the ass of that club. But point is, the car is well above and beyond what you would expect from it to be. 200 horsepower, it performs really, really well for 200 horsepower. 7,000 RPM, front wheel drive, 1530 kgs. You would expect it to be quite, you wouldn't expect it to be as agile as it is, especially being front wheel drive and in the 1500 kg region. Yeah, it's on the lighter side, but there's things that are far lighter than it, like a Honda Civic. The fact that it rounds the corners as nicely as it does, regardless of how much more weight it has in comparison to a Civic, is impressive, because I own an EG6 with 315 horsepower, I believe this has, and it's 1,000 kilograms flat or something like that. And this Eclipse handles basically as well as that EG6 does. And that EG6 is a wide body. Like, yeah, that EG6 will outhandle the Eclipse, but the Eclipse isn't that far behind it in performance, which, for what it is impressive, because the differentiation in build level between those cars is 3 entire classes. Because the EG6 is C4 and this is C1. So the fact that it handles as well as it does is quite the statement. And I'm really impressed with it. And it's a very enjoyable car to drive now that it's fully dialed in. I'm genuinely excited for the engine swap that's going to go into it. That's what we're saving for right now. It's going to be a while before we have the silver needed to get that done. I also need to find out if the installation of the engine we're putting in is going to cost silver or gold, but I won't know that until I have the engine itself. So right now we're working on attaining the engine itself, which anybody who knows my swaps knows that I get my engines from other vehicles. While you could buy the engine swaps in the tuning shop, they're not nearly as good as just grabbing a engine out of another vehicle and using it. So we have to buy the vehicle that houses the engine we're wanting, and then we have to pull the motor out of that vehicle, which is going to cost us, I believe, 45,000. Not necessarily. It could be more. It varies from car to car. Hopefully it only costs us 45,000 to pull the motor out. And then to get the motor that we use for our engine swaps back, we're going to have to pay another 40,000 to reinstall the factory motor into that same car, and then we sell the car because we don't need the car itself. We just need we might end up pulling the transmission to use it for something else later on too. But I might as well, seeing as it would be useful to have on hand, and I might as well get what's worth out of that car before selling it back. But basically, we're buying a car, pulling the motor and transmission, re-putting in a factory motor into it, possibly a factory transmission back into it, depending. We'll see. Most likely, but we'll see. We'll buy the car, pull motor, transmission, put factory, reset another new factory motor and new factory transmission back into it, and then we'll sell the car back because we don't need the car itself. We just need the engine, and we'll pull the transmission to have for the sake of having, because I'm sure I'll come to a build that I'll want to throw it into eventually. Because the parts are good parts. The car has good parts. I just don't want the car itself. In other words, basically, we need to buy a parts car, strip the parts from it, and then sell the parts car back, and then put the parts from that we stripped from the parts car into the cars we're wanting to put them into. So, in this case, we're taking the engine from the parts car and putting it into the Eclipse. And the other parts we get from the parts car, we don't have any specific plans for yet, but it's a good parts car, and they're really good parts. The transmission is really good for another build that I know I could come to mind with, but I don't want to spoil anything before we get there. So we'll get that parts car, we'll get the parts we need, we'll find out what the installation costs are, and we'll try to get everything set up. That way we have the currencies needed to install the parts when it is time to install the parts, which is whenever Chucky reaches C2, which won't happen until he gets his new phone. So once that happens, then we can finally actually start getting excited about the engine swap. But until then, we need to prepare for the engine swap. The last thing we want is for Chucky to let us know that he has his new phone and us to be nowhere near prepared, and next thing you know, we're getting a message from Chucky saying he's got his Class 2 car, and we're still like 50% of the way away from getting the supplies we need to put our car into Class 2. Then we would be lacking behind, and then that would suck. So, we're acting a little ahead of time to make sure that we don't end up in a shitty situation where our car is lacking behind our friends' vehicles. I also don't want to end up pushing my car ahead of my friends' vehicles. That's why it's sitting the way it is. It's tuned for Class 1, and this tune is what it'll use for Class 2 too, other than the final drive. All it's going to get is the engine swap and the final drive adjustment, and that'll set it in for Class 2. It'll stay stock body on these tires, everything. It just needs the engine swap and the final drive adjustment. So, its Class 1 is done. It drives amazing. I'm very happy with it. And once we've got our supplies for Class 2, then we're just waiting on Chucky. And when Chucky has gotten his Class 2, we'll put our supplies into it and move it to Class 2, and that will be where the build ends. I'm hoping that it doesn't get bumped into Class 3. It'll either be on the high end of Class 2 or on the low end of Class 3. If it goes into the low end of Class 3, that is okay. Because we have this we can run for Class 2. I feel like I had another. We have the RX-8 we can run for Class 2. I wouldn't run my Z, but it's there. I wouldn't run my TTRS, but it's there. But we have the RX-8 and the GT86 that we can use for Class 2 if this ends up getting into Class 3. And then if this does get up into Class 3 and we have to use one of those two, we'll simply just wait until Class 3. We'll put this away for Class 2, and when Chucky gets a Class 3 is when we'll pull it back out. And it'll be as simple as that. So, we have plans set in stone, and everything's solid. There shouldn't be anything to worry about. I have Class 3s as well, in case he gets to Class 3 before this gets to Class 3. But hopefully this doesn't even get to Class 3. Hopefully it becomes a high quality class 2, like a top of the line class 2, but I'm not 100% on where the numbers are going to fall. I need to get the engine first, and then I need to view it with the engine, and then I'll know. But first I need the engine before I can even see. So, fingers crossed that it goes to high class 2. If it goes to low class 3, not a big deal. We have a backup plan in place. But that's where I'm going to wrap it up for now. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.